wide-scale tax reform.
Wide-scale tax reform is essentially what we need.
What is affordable? Has it blown out? What about the NDIS? This question without notice. It is super expensive. And do you think it has moved away from what it was designed to do, and that is to look after the profoundly disabled?
I think with the NDIS, what we have here is a system that was introduced under one form of government, and I believe it was introduced with all of the best intentions, and then for a period of time it's become whatever it's become. You know, we've seen this government unwielding. It is unwielding, and we have seen this government immediately prioritise a review of it. What I would say is that I am quite heartened by the fact, you know, we had heard murmurs that the government was going to look to roll out the model that is NDIS across other areas of community support, so aged care, provision of home services for our elderly. To my mind, it would be crazy to roll the model that is NDIS into any other part of our society until we know we've got the model that is NDIS right. And that's what I believe this government is currently looking at. In its current form, it's not sustainable. We have to work out what's not working there and how we make it more sustainable going forward, particularly if we want it to be the roadmap for reform in other areas.
So you've obviously had discussions with the government in the lead up to the budget. Did you have a wish list? Do you have requests? What's number one on that list?
Look, for me, it actually is housing. You know, we have.
What do you make of the Greens then today?
Well, it's disappointing. The housing, housing affordability future fund. To me, the housing affordability future fund may not be perfect, but it's a start. And you know, I've spent a lot of time talking not just to people who work in the community housing sector, but to people who actually work in the housing development space. They all want this fund to proceed. It's not perfect. We need to get it moving. And I think for any political party to hold a major legislative reform to ransom in exchange for something else, it's just not the way our country is going to move forward in the longer run.
Isn't it?
Well,
saying, you know, tax breaks like negative gearing needs to be scrapped altogether. I mean, the Labor government would be very aware that they tried this once and lost an election.
There is no doubt we need to have a conversation in this country about our overarching tax system. We have an over-reliance on taxing individuals at the moment, and arguably we tax the wrong things. You know, the more someone works or the more they earn, the more they get taxed, and surely that's got to be a disincentive for working harder in the long run.
So that's your argument to keep stage 3 tax cuts?
I absolutely believe we need to keep stage 3 tax cuts. You know, this is the final stage of what has been a rolling reform over 5 years. It's the last time we did any reform in this area, and even with that movement, the tax bracket creep will barely be keeping up. So, you know, that stage 3 tax reform is a really simple gimme at the moment, and that's the danger I think we always fall into when it comes to...
It is simple, isn't it? And it's been pounced upon by your colleagues in the Senate, like Senator David Pocock. I mean, he seems immovable on this, and it seems like if you want more revenue, that's not where you get it. I mean...
So my argument again would be that it's too simple. It's a gimme. It's oversimplified. What we need to do is look at the wider conversation, which is how do we actually tax those forms of wealth that are not anti-productivity? And to me, increasing income tax is anti-productivity in the long run. So there's a much broader conversation that needs to be had here. I hope this government can be brave enough to engage in it, but it is going to take courage.
Well, governments in more recent history have not been brave enough to do so. So we will see. Kylie, great to see you.
Great to see you.